Yeah.
Greetings, I am Felis, I'm from Sman 1 Sampit. I'll do my speech as the first speaker of the government's team in 3, 2, 1. So, the motion is, this house would require social media companies to verify the identity of our users. First of all, we know that these days there has been lots of problems going all around social media. Too many fake accounts, cyberbullying continues to rise, lots of online scammers and frauds, doxings, or even fake news spread by anonymous accounts. Unfortunately, these accounts, after they got suspended, their owners could still easily create a new account with new fake identities because there are still no regulations related to these problems. Knowing all of this, as the proposition team, we believe that social media should remain as a place to express opinion freely. But this opinion, this freedom comes with a responsibility. Our team would explain the likelihood if we use this motion. Me, as the first speaker, will explain about the reasons of this motion, and the second speaker will explain the further impact if we use this motion. Now comes the big question: how do we exactly verify all the identities of these users? First of all, of course, we have to tighten the policies related to identity verifications and ownerships on each account in social media. This would require the government to work together with the company to be able to create laws that require each users on social media to verify their identification using real data that is valid and that is registered to their country. As an example, a person would have to show their ID before they get to use the social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, X, etc. Has to be an important note that the social media company would be the main holder of this user's personal identity. And this personal identity can only be used to solve problems like cybercriminalities, etc. And they cannot be condoned to any misuse of identities related to this system. Now comes, you might ask, that why do we exactly need these regulations? First of all, of course, because the lack of these regulations causes the problems to rise up quickly, and lots of people would be the next victim of their actions. This is because people tend to behave differently when they cannot be identified, because they know they won't get into much trouble because the system could not track them down because they use fake identities. This means that the people who did criminals online would not have the proper inspections nor punishment as the consequences of their actions. Second of all, the opposition team might say that some platforms already have regulations related to identities and ownerships. As an example, some platforms have the regulations that allows an identity to be only used once in their platform. Unfortunately, these current enforcement are not effective enough to solve the problems, sometimes causing investigations to go slow and expensive, even leads to some victims to not achieve justice because of it. By this, we can conclude that now we need this motion as the solutions to many problems that has been going around the internet. So we, as the proposition team, proudly propose this motion. Thank you.
Greetings! Hi, I'm Sherin Alfira Indra. I'm from SMA Negeri 1 Sampit, and I'm standing in government team. Also, I'm the second speaker. Let me start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let me respond to the opposition team. The opposition team might bring about the policy would destroy privacy if our ID data number leaks from social media. It would put the user in danger, and it would get worse. Also, they would say that our policy is useless. But honorable judges, please look back in the reality. The fact that data leaks and identity theft are actually happening, and it's everywhere right now in social media. So, the government can come up with a policy in social media. They would add identity data numbers to a specific one person to log in the social media. The policy is actually exists to protect our true private data, and the data will be kept in the system social media. It will not get leaked. Last but not least, we're not asking social media to display our real names on the public, but the users could hide their real names. It's just the system knows that the person behind the account and the person who owns the account is a real person, not AI bot. Okay, so I will explain further for the impact if we apply new policy, that is to add identity numbers on social media login. Okay, first of all, this creates a safer place and a better environment in social media. It would make less cyberbullying, less people who stalked, and less people who tend to be a fraud. In these days, there are so many people who try to scam. For example, they would run away, they would make a fake account, and this fake account, we don't know who is behind that fake account. And with this new policy, the fake account will be less, or fewer fake accounts was made. Why? It's because we can use one identity number to every 10 account. Even if we can, it belongs to a specific person, right? So we know who is behind that account, and we can track them easily by the police. And last but not least, is a better protection for the children. With adding identity numbers, the social media knows that it was children who allowed to be used in social media, but they are still children. So the social media can adjust the content for them. Jump into another argument is to build public trust. First of all, people would likely trusting buying from social media. Next is interacting online. They could explore other new friends online safer. And last but not least is consuming information. Buying stuff off social media would be trusted. Why? Because the shop is owned by real people who tend to be an owner of that shop, not a scammer. And the consumer, also people who buy, is a real person, not a fraud. For example, small business owner no longer lost their customer due to fake reviews created by competitors, and people are likely less scammed by the old shop. And I would say I'm proud to propose this motion. Thank you very much.
Greetings, my name is Ajijana Joseph. I'm from Sman Sampit, and I'm standing here as the third speaker from the third position team in this debate. Now, let's move to my argumentation and rebuttals in 3, 2, 1. At this point of this debate, this is no longer whether the anonymity has given us benefits. Yes, it does, but let's again think. Should anonymity exist without accountability? Our answer is no. Now, I will demonstrate why our impacts are principle and our benefits and models are all so much greater and superior when it compares to the opposition team. If we compare two words, first, the opposition teams only cover a relatively small amount of people that generally needs a protection that is anonymity completely, such as whistleblower and political activists. But if we imply our policy, we could support like hundreds and millions of users that gonna face abuser, scammer, and etc. if we don't imply this. And that means the people who benefit our policy, which is a greater accountability to each other user, is greater and much bigger rather than we compare it to the opposition team offer. The next one is we need to notice about how each side framing this debate. The opposition teams asking you about what might happen next. They could say that, oh, the data could leak, the government could abuse this policy, and the platform could misuse or fail to protect this use of data. But our side deals with harms that are completely done in real life, such as cyberbullying that students have to face every day, the celebrity that got hate speech each day, and family who loses money in every day because online scams. They only make this assumption to make their argumentation stronger. Third, and last but not least, let's compare the likelihood from each world's impact. Again, our impacts are immediate and highly probable because they are already exist in today's world, the problems. But the opposition impacts depends on several assumptions, which is the government will abuse this policy, the platform will fail to protect user data, and yes, that is possible, but that is not inevitable outcomes. In our policy, government could only access it when there's a legitimate investigation. When they bring about leaks of data, then we should know that the risks already exist. The digital payment and etc. have already hacked by countless times. But that means the thing that we should do is to strengthen our cyber security, because the benefit is still greater than the risk. If we compare again about the two words from our argumentation, the opposition team's words is to protect the fake accounts that are cheap and easy to replace, almost impossible to trace. The people that tend to do harmful things can create another account after being suspended countless of times. But in our world, ordinary people still got their freedom of speech. The identity still got kept, not leaked. At the end, don't compare policy to the perfect world, but compare it to the world that we live in, that full of harassment and abusing because anonymity itself. And that's why we proudly to propose.
Greetings, I am Felice. As the replay speaker, I will conclude what happened in the debate and compare the arguments between the opposition team with our team, which is the proposition team. First of all, the opposition team only worry about data leaks and predict future problems that are uncertain, while we as the proposition team create solutions for current problems that are already there. Now comes the few main points. First of all, which arguments affects the more people? Opposition team only protects a relatively small numbers of users. Like how they say, they might only bring about how their data would leak, how there will be misuse of identities, and they do not think about how to solve the actual problems that are already around the internet right now. Instead, in our arguments, we explain lots of mechanisms on how to work with these problems, and we also explain that this will bring more benefits if we supported the motions. Second of all, the opposition team only worries about what might happen, like how I could say. They only worry about data leaks, government abuse powers, and companies that might reuse information. But our side address the harms that already exist. We explain that the internet already has lots of problems, and we only create the solutions for that problems instead of trying to create more problems because of our arguments. The last but not least, our impacts are highly probable, meaning that our arguments are certainly more problem-solving than the opposition team. By contrast, even if opposition team assumes problems might appear like how I said before, that is only an assumption, meaning that it is not certain, it is not provable yet, and it is not what we should worry right now. We should more worry about what is already happening right now and how to solve them instead of creating a solution for problems that haven't arisen just yet. That is problem that isn't reliable, that isn't certain just now. That's why us as the proposition team proudly propose this motion. Thank you.